The technician opened the lamp first. That is what the report says. He removed the shade, checked the socket, unscrewed the bulb, inspected the base, and ran a probe along the cord. Nothing unusual appeared. No microphone, no hidden battery, no wire running into the wall, no transmitter tucked into the metal stem. The lamp was clean. The room was still leaking. That contradiction is the beginning of Project Filament. Welcome to Terra Chrono. If you like archive stories where the most ordinary object in the room becomes the evidence, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This file is about a light bulb, but not in the way the first sentence makes you imagine. The obvious version is almost too simple. Someone hides a listening device in a bulb. The target sits under it. The device records the conversation. But the filament papers point towards something stranger. The bulb did not contain the bug. The bulb was the signal. The earliest memo is dated in the winter of 1962. It is only 3 pages long, with a cover sheet, a test room number, and a phrase typed in the lower corner. Unmodified luminous target. That phrase is what makes the file difficult to ignore. Unmodified means nobody had to plant anything inside the room. Luminous target means the object being watched was already producing light. The test object was an ordinary hanging bulb. Not a special bulb, not a spy gadget, not a bulb with a cavity, a coil, or a radio element hidden inside it. Just a glass bulb suspended above a table, the kind found in offices, hotel rooms, workshops, safe houses, storage rooms, and rented apartments all over the world. The first assumption in the file is mechanical failure. Maybe the bulb flickered, maybe the wire was loose, maybe the lamp was picking up electrical noise from the building. Then the waveform appears. On one strip, the technicians marked the room audio. On the next, they marked the light variation. The 2 lines did not match perfectly, they should not have. One was sound pressure inside a room. The other was a faint change measured from light. But they moved together. When a man spoke, the bulb moved. Not visibly. Not enough for the eye to catch. Not enough for anyone in the room to suspect the lamp was doing anything except giving light. But speech is pressure. Pressure moves air. Air touches glass. Glass vibrates. A hanging bulb is small, light, and suspended from a point. It can tremble by an amount so tiny that the room never notices. The light leaving that bulb carries those tiny changes with it. The file calls this the first rule of filament. Do not listen where the voice is. Listen where the voice leaves a mark. That is the part that changes the operation. A planted microphone has to be placed. A wire has to be run. A battery has to be changed. A transmitter has to survive a sweep. Every classic bug creates evidence of itself, because at some point, someone has to enter the room and add something that was not there before. Filament avoided that problem by asking a colder question. What if the room already had the microphone? The answer was not electronic at first. It was optical. Across the street from the test room, a second room was prepared. The blinds were cut with a narrow opening. A long lens was mounted on a tripod. A light sensor sat behind it. The operator did not aim at a person. He did not aim at a telephone. He aimed at the bulb. There was no sound cable between the rooms. There was no transmitter in the target room. There was only line of sight. The first recovered words were poor. The file says the signal was unstable, broken by street movement, reflection from the window, and changes in the bulb's brightness. Some phrases were only guessed. Some were lost entirely. One page has a typed conclusion that reads more like irritation than triumph. The lamp answers only when the room is quiet enough to hear it. But another page was more important. Detection risk, low. That is why the project mattered, not because it produced perfect sound. Intelligence services already had better microphones. They had wires, transmitters, telephone taps, room bugs, and compromised equipment. A light bulb was not attractive because it was the best microphone. It was attractive because it was not a microphone at all. If a security team searched the room, it would find nothing. If it unscrewed the bulb, it would find an ordinary filament. If it replaced the lamp, it might solve the leak by accident, but it would not understand the method. If it swept for radio signals, there would be no transmitter to locate. The dangerous thing was not a hidden device. It was an exposed surface. That idea did not appear from nowhere. Cold War counterintelligence had already learned that a bug did not need to look like a bug. The Great Seal device had proved that a passive object could sit in a room for years and speak only when activated from outside. Western research into passive listening followed for a reason. The most frightening devices were the ones that did not announce themselves as devices. Filament moved that fear one step further. What if the object did not even need to be built as a device? What if an ordinary object chosen by accident could become part of the listening system? The files divide rooms into two categories. The first are rooms that have to be entered. Those require access, timing, cover, and risk. The second are rooms that can be observed. Those require distance, patience, and a surface that betrays movement. A bulb was only the cleanest example. It was bright. It was suspended. It was often visible from a window. It sat close to the voices people cared about. Conference tables, desks, hotel chairs, interrogation rooms, clerk counters, and embassy offices where visitors looked up at the light and never thought of it again. The program appears to have tested other objects too. Window glass, metal lampshades, framed pictures, ashtrays, water glasses, anything that could move when a room spoke. But the bulb kept returning in the notes because it solved two problems at once. It vibrated and it illuminated itself. You did not need to shine a visible beam into the room. You only had to collect what the room was already sending out. That made the target strangely cooperative. The people inside switched on the light. They gave the receiver its source. Then they sat beneath it and talked. The most revealing page is not a technical diagram. It is a simple checklist titled Room Suitability, Visible Hanging Bulb, Stable External Observation Point, Minimal Curtain Interference, Low Street Glare, Conversation Zone within Lamp Response, No Television, Fan or Music Source. The checklist does not read like a gadget inventory. It reads like a real estate survey. The operation was not asking what device could be hidden in the room. It was asking whether the room itself was already configured to betray its occupants. This is the practical advantage. A normal bug depends on possession. You must control the object long enough to alter it. Filament depended on geometry. If the receiver could see the bulb, the room had already given up part of its defense. The file contains one hotel example. The name is blacked out. The city is removed. The floor plan remains. A meeting room faces a service building across a narrow street. The window curtains do not fully close. A ceiling bulb hangs above a round table. The observation point has an angle of less than 7 degrees above the bulb line. The note beside the diagram says, acceptable for phrase recovery, not identity. That line tells you what Filament could and could not do. It was not a perfect recorder. It could not always separate voices. It struggled with noise. It needed the bulb to be visible. It needed the room to be quiet. It needed light that behaved consistently enough to measure. But intelligence rarely needs perfection at first. Sometimes it needs one phrase, a name, a date, a confirmation that a meeting happened, a word that proves the wrong person was in the right room. In that sense, a poor signal could still be valuable. It did not have to replace a microphone. It only had to tell an analyst where to look next. One recovered fragment appears in the margins of a later summary. The words are incomplete. Not through the phone, after the courier, keep the light. There is no transcript around it, only a notation, usable orientation. That phrase might be the most honest description of the project. Filament was not built to produce clean recordings for courtrooms. It was built to orient suspicion, to point a file toward the room, the person, the courier, the date, to make an invisible conversation leave an imperfect shadow. The strangest part is that the method feels modern, but the fear behind it is old. Any room is full of surfaces. We think of privacy as a matter of walls and closed doors, but sound does not respect that idea. It touches everything. It presses against glass. It shakes fixtures. It moves water, fabric, metal, paper, and light objects hung from ceilings. Filament treated a room as a field of witnesses. The bulb was only the witness that glowed. That is why the final memo is not about bulbs. It is about assumptions. The old security question was, has anyone entered this room and hidden something? The Filament question was different. What in this room is already carrying sound away? There is a short closing note clipped to the last folder. The author recommends that sensitive rooms avoid visible hanging bulbs facing exterior windows. He also recommends heavier fixtures, layered curtains, constant masking noise, and inspection not only for foreign objects, but for exposed vibrating surfaces. The recommendation is defensive, but it reads like an admission. The lamp was clean, the room was not. That is the final twist of Project Filament. The target did not fail because someone smuggled a microphone inside. It failed because the room was built like every other room. A table, a window, a light, and above the conversation, an ordinary bulb doing the one thing nobody thought to classify. It was shining. If this kind of archive story is what you came for, like the video, subscribe to Terra Chrono and turn on notifications. The next file begins with the same uncomfortable question. What else in the room has been listening the whole time?